Hi folks, it's Ms. Schossler, and I wanted to take some time to talk to you about your assignment number 3. Hopefully you're already working on your assignment number 3 and are close to finalizing it even. But remember, this assignment builds off of assignments you have worked on in the past, and not only that, but it will also inform or support assignments that you are doing in the future. One more in this class, and then again as you move into nursing 495 or 485, where you'll be using this paper to develop a quality improvement plan. So it's important that you develop good resources to use here in this class and have a firm understanding of how you're going to use that PICO-T question as you move forward. So here in this class, for assignment number 3, the Quality Improvement Intervention Proposal Paper Part 1, and Part 2 of this occurs in another class. So Part 1 is worth 30% of your grade. It's the first half of the assignment that you'll complete in 495 or 485. You start, of course, with the heart of the paper, which is the PICO-T question, where you are determining what it is that your change is going to be about. And that change is really the implementation of the I in the PICO-T question. The I is the intervention. It's the thing that we're going to do, that we are suggesting in our research question that would change things. So hopefully you have already determined what that is, and I will tell you that some students get to this point and recognize that they are not on track. That either they cannot find the supporting evidence they need, or they were going about the research question in the wrong way, or that they can't picture the question being used to support the second half of the paper that comes in another class. And so some students will change right now to a different topic, and that is absolutely okay as long as you have the time to build the resources that you need. Remember, those resources are going to be important as you go forward. You already are finding out that they're important even now as you've used some of that in discussion areas and in your previous paper. So here in this paper, the job is to really talk about, hone in on that PICO-T I, the intervention, by talking about your resources. So this paper should be 7 to 10 pages, but you probably know by now that I am not as intent on the number of pages as I am that you cover the material that you need to cover. I will also point out that you're going to need this paper in your next class. So save it in some way on your desktop or on a thumb drive. I will tell you that I have had students reach out to me later saying they didn't realize they were supposed to have the paper, or they lost it, or the computer was ruined, or whatever happened. So consider putting this paper and the feedback you get from it on a thumb drive and keeping that for your next class. So here in this class, as we focus on this paper, we're going to walk you through the criteria so that you understand what goes into the paper. First, the statement of the problem. Remember, you want to clearly articulate what the problem is that brought you to this research question. So to get high points in this section, you want to include a clear and accurate statement of the problem to be addressed. The primary focus of the intervention is clearly identified, and a convincing case for the intervention, or the I, is made. So this is really what I've been hoping that you'll do every time you write an introduction to your paper, to any paper, where you build a first paragraph that really supports the importance of that topic. Maybe I'm writing about mother-baby bonding and skin-to-skin contact. So to do that, I'm going to really build up in my first paragraph the number of births across the nation, and the number of, if my topic is specifically about C-section patients not getting that skin-to-skin contact, then I would build up the number of C-sections that happen every year across the nation, and maybe even some of the satisfaction scores that relate to those. Perhaps I'm talking about hand-washing techniques or hand-washing education, and so I would build up that first paragraph to be about the number of infections and the potential deleterious effects of infections across the country, and what it can mean to our patients for length of stay, mortality, those types of things. Bring in some good statistics about whatever it is that your problem is. Maybe I'm writing about intention to leave or retention of new nurses, and my I is going to be a preceptor program, well, I want to talk about turnover rate and retention of those new nurses in my first paragraph. Build up a convincing argument in your first paragraph about the significance of the problem. That means that you must have in-text citations in there, because there's no way that you can talk about the significance of a problem without giving us some good facts about it. The next section is the literature review. This is where your research is really the heart of it. It is your research literature is adequately discussed using recent references from 7 or more scientific journal articles. We want these to be research articles. It is okay if not all of them are high-level evidence, but you still want to go with as many. The majority of these should be research articles, and as many research articles as you can get. So remember, what we're doing here is creating a literature review section. So remember, the discussion will not center around the I in this particular section of the paper. It will center around the literature that you found. Think back to those research articles that you've already read. Many of them have a section clearly labeled literature review. In that section, they're going to specifically say things like, in a review of literature over the last 5 years related to the topic of blank, research articles were found from, and then they'll go into each one of those research articles, excuse me. So rather than writing a paragraph or 7 or 10 paragraphs about the topic of nurse retention, or instituting a preceptor program with in-text citations from 10 works, rather than doing that, you're writing about 10 works or 7 to 10 works of research. So you're going to talk about the actual articles themselves. Rather than talking again about the I, the planned change, or the I in your PICO-T question, in this section you're writing about the specific articles that you found. There's 2 ways to do that. You can either present your articles, your 7 articles, one after the other. So you're gonna, you could use, you've got to use APA-centered headings, level 1 APA headings in the APA paper to get full credit anyway. So you've got a centered heading for literature review, and then you could do the level 2 heading, which is off to the left margin, still bolded. You could do 7 of those level 2 headings, 1 for each article, and then under each one of those you would have a paragraph. You could do more than a paragraph if you want, but most students do 1 paragraph for each one of the research articles that they found. That's one way to do it. It's a very clear and organized way to do it. Again, that's using level 2 headings under the level 1 heading of literature review, just for this section. The other way to do it for this section is to write about, just to use that one centered level 1 heading for literature review, and in that heading address all of your articles. You can have 1 or more per paragraph, but you truly do need to go into the heart of the article. It is my suggestion to you that you use a regular format as you address each one of them. So for each one, for example, you're going to tell us the author's names. You're going to tell us the type of research that was conducted. You're going to tell us the sample size. You're going to tell us the major findings for each one of the articles, so that you're just consistently using the same format for your paragraph, one after the other after the other. That's just a simplified way to do it, where you're organizing your thoughts into a specific pattern, and that seems to work very well for students. The other way to do it, of course, is to talk about more than one article in a paragraph, where you are still addressing the main contents of each article, but you're combining more than one of them in a paragraph. I suggest the first, that you do a very formalized, systematic way of addressing each one of your paragraphs. And by the way, if you need more help with this or not completely clear on the instructions, please do reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. Remember, all of your articles need to be addressed in the literature review section. because you are talking about each one of the articles either independently in their own paragraphs, or you're going to talk about each one of them in the body of paragraphs with more than one perhaps in a paragraph, you will have in-text citations at least once in there. Even if you are just addressing each one in their own paragraph using level 2 headings, you'll have at least one in-text citation to give perhaps the year when you're talking about the author's names. It's not important that you cite over and over again in them, because you'll have at least one in-text citation, and especially if you choose the format where you're addressing one per paragraph, the whole paragraph's going to be about that article. So that's your literature review section. After your literature review section, you're going to have a summary of findings, and this is an important section in the paper. The summary of findings brings together the findings from all of the works that you're looking at. Now this is important for a researcher, for anyone about to start a QI project, because what you're saying is, I have a body of evidence. This body for us happens to include 7 research articles, or as many research articles as you can find, in 7 high-level evidence articles. So we need to make sure as nurses that are patient advocates and after safe and quality care, we want to make sure that we have a body of evidence before we make any change in our patients' care. We would never make a change based on just one article or 2 articles that are telling us to do something. Even if that one article was a high level of evidence or high level of research, we still would not make change based on one article. We need to know that there are multiple researchers out there that have said this is the way to do it. This is the safe way to do it. This is the way that's going to affect patient care and the way we want to see it affected. So we need a body of evidence, and that body of evidence is what you just talked about in your summary, in your literature review, article after article after article. So here in the summary of findings, we're bringing together the evidence that all of the findings that you just talked about, all the research articles, and you're saying, here are the recommendations from those authors telling us to do blank, whatever it is. And hopefully all of those are supporting your I from your PICO-T question. Even if they're not all supporting the I, then you should be able to say the majority are supporting the intervention described in the PICO-T question, and here are the examples. And then if you find something that doesn't support it, you need to clearly describe that as well. So that last section, summary of findings, summary findings related to both the problem statement and the proposed intervention are well presented. Remember, that problem statement, that's you talking about what the problem is that led you to develop that PICO-T question. And so that problem statement should lead right into the intervention, because that is your way to fix the problem, right? By creating or creating change using that intervention. In my example of the problem of new graduate nurse retention and high turnover rate or even high dissatisfaction rates among new graduates, that's a problem, and my intervention would be the implementation of a preceptorship program. And so one leads right to the next. That high turnover rate leads right to my discussion of the preceptor program. So you're going to address both of those in the summary of findings with the supporting recommendations from the literature that you just reviewed. So that can be a paragraph. It really needs to be at least a full, nice, meaty paragraph, 5 to 7 sentences, if not 2 paragraphs. And then format and submission, we always look at APA, making sure that your work is formatted appropriately, at least level 1 headings, a cover page and reference page that's well formatted. Again, remember, proper length is not an issue for me as long as you cover adequately what you're supposed to cover. And that's it for this paper. I will point out that after this comes your poster presentation, which again builds off of this same topic, and it's really presenting information from this topic to the class in a PowerPoint poster presentation. All right, that's it. If you have questions, please let me know. I'm happy to speak to you about your topic take a look at anything that you want me to take a look at, just reach out to me.